hour. John Piper says, God is doing about 10,000 things in your life right now, but you're only aware of 3 of them. Have you ever been in a situation where you didn't understand what God was doing, but months later or years later, when you zoomed out of the challenge that you face, God was working behind the scenes the whole time? Maybe there was a job that you got overlooked for, only to find out several months or even a year later that God had something better for you. Perhaps you were in a relationship that ended abruptly and you didn't understand why, but then you realize now that it was God protecting you the whole time. See, when we just look at life through a magnifying glass and we're looking at the details, we can miss what God is doing. I want to submit to you today that we should not look at life through a magnifying glass. We should look at life through a helicopter view. That we should zoom out and rise above our momentary struggles to see the Lord at work and to see what He is doing, because God has a way of bringing a providential situation out of mess, because God can see things that we cannot. In Exodus chapter 1 and chapter 2, we see God's providence at work in the life of Moses. From the outside, it looks chaotic. It's dealt with hardship, a cruel Pharaoh, a death sentence to the Hebrew boys, and a mother who's desperate, who places her baby in the Nile River. It seems as though that God has forgotten His promise, His people, and His plan. And today you might only see the struggle right in front of you. But if you could step back and look at what God is doing and get the bigger picture, you would realize that God is never absent, nor passive, nor does He forget His plan. His providence is at work even when you don't see it. Instead of magnifying our problems, we need to learn to magnify the Lord. We need to learn to step back and see what God is doing behind the scenes, and that He is always at work. God is at work whether you know it or not right now. We're just aware of about 3 things that God is doing when He's actually doing about 10,000 things in our life right now. But before we understand God's providence, we got to understand God's, y'all ready for it? We got to understand His sovereignty. This is a whole class, a whole teaching. I want you to come to First Wednesdays, the first Wednesday of every month, where I'm going to break down what sovereignty is, because if you don't have a good grasp of God's sovereignty, you will go through life, and when tragedy happens, you will end up leaving the faith, because life does not make sense without understanding that God is in charge. What is sovereignty? That God possesses all power and is the ruler of all things. All power. He's the ruler of all things. Let me give you this. Psalm 115 verse 3 says, our God is in heaven, and what? He does whatever He pleases. I know people are teaching this from the pulpit, and it is wrong, that God needs your permission to move. God does not need your permission. He does what He wants to do. There are some things that will happen in life if I pray, but there are some things that will happen in my life whether I pray or not. God doesn't need me. If I say no to God's plan, God will raise up another pastor in this church for His will to be done. I don't have to serve, I get to serve. It doesn't matter who's in office, God's plan will come to fruition. God is the only author that starts at the end and then backs it up to the beginning. And I read the end of the book. We've already won. It's already over. It doesn't matter what happens in our life. Your story is already written. He's the author and finisher of your faith. There are some things that I can fast and pray about, but if it's not God's will, He won't do it. Okay. Then there's some things, even when I'm a mess, He's still going to do it because He's that good. Y'all don't like it. See, we treat God as if when I pray about it, he has to do it as if he's serving me. I'm here to tell you there are certain things that's happened in your life, and it was not because of your prayer life. It was because of God's sovereignty. God is sovereign. God doesn't cause everything. This is challenging, but he allows everything for his purpose and for our good. I'm going to say it one more time. For his purpose and our good. One more time. Not for my purpose, for his purpose and my good. So what's good for me is not my purpose. Okay. What's good for me is his purpose. That's why I got to align myself with his purpose, not my purpose. You have to be purposeful and get in the will of God. What is the will of God? The will is the word, and the word is his will. And there are some things in my life that I can pray about. I can come to the altar, but if it's not God's will, listen to me, and it does not align with his plan, it will not happen. But there are some things where God says, listen, I'm just going to do it because this is my plan, whether you pray about it or not. Now, I'm not saying don't pray. There are some things that only happen by prayer and with faith. But God can do whatever he wants, regardless if everybody in the world is tripping or not, because he's all powerful. He's the ruler of all things. Now, you need to get this because God's sovereignty displays his power. Are y'all taking notes today? I know it's hot. I'm going to back it up. God's sovereignty displays his power, but his providence displays his purpose. I'm going to say it one more time. You should be taking notes at this church. God's sovereignty displays his power. But God's what? Say it with me. His providence displays his purpose. See, if you don't understand his providence and you only understand his sovereignty, when life doesn't go the way that you want, you will end up leaving because you don't understand that every single thing that jumps off in your life does have a purpose. But oftentimes, what do? We don't like what God is doing in our own lives. Everything that you've been through, it's not caused by God, but God will use it for a purpose. Are y'all with me today? See, God's providence is this. It's the way that God arranges things to achieve his sovereign purposes. God is an arranger. He arranges every detail of your life, whether you liked it or not, for his sovereign purposes. I want you to imagine walking into a symphony rehearsal before the performance. As your musicians are warming up, you hear random sounds. A violin that's playing scales, a trumpet that's blasting a few notes, a percussionist that's tapping lightly. A pianist is adjusting chords. Individually, none of these sounds sound good. They're chaotic. They don't make sense at all. And if you focus just on one sound, it might seem out of place. But then something happens to the chaos. A conductor comes. Y'all missed the whole sermon. And when the conductor comes, he lifts his baton, and suddenly every instrument that was chaotic unites to perfect harmony. What once sounded like noise and nothingness turns into a beautiful symphony. Every note, every rest, every tempo is changed and orchestrated into something beautiful. That's God's providence. In our lives, when an event happens, you're just looking at one note. You're looking at a chaotic situation. But if you would step back and allow the conductor to intervene in your innovating circumstances, you would realize that situation, this situation, God will use it for his glory and his good. I got one point and I'm taking my seat. It's too hot, yo. I'm almost done. But I need you to write this down. This is one note or 1 point. That's all I got today. It's just one. Even when you don't understand the notes, trust the conductor. Even when you don't understand the notes, Trust the conductor. When you don't understand what has just happened in your life, you got laid off from the job, got the pink slip, got a doctor's note, you don't know what's going on. Hey, a divorce you didn't think was going to happen. I need you to step back for a moment. And I need you to trust the conductor. It's just an isolated event that God will use for his glory to create a beautiful song for your good. So even when you don't understand the notes, you have to trust the conductor. In Exodus chapter 1 and chapter 2, the Israelites have to trust the conductor. Because there's a new Pharaoh who does not know Joseph. He does not care about the relationship that the previous Pharaoh had. He sees that the Israelites are growing and multiplying, and he gets a little nervous. So he says, I'm going to oppress them to make their life bitter. This Pharaoh does not care about diversity, equity, or inclusion. He doesn't care about it because if a war breaks out, he's afraid that the Israelites will take the side of their enemies. But the more he oppressed them, the more they multiplied. Okay. The more he oppressed them, the more that they multiplied. The more sometimes the enemy comes after you, the more prayer life you start to get. See, some of us are not in church because everything's going right. It's because the enemy's attacking you. This is what I know, that sometimes I can get lazy when I don't have to go through any spiritual warfare. See, the reason some of us are being attacked right now is to force you to pray. And so Pharaoh now wants to make them live a bitter life, so he starts to oppress them. I'm so glad you came to church today. I hope it's worth it. Just give me about 15 to 45 minutes, and I'll be out your way in a moment. Because he doesn't care about diversity, equity, or inclusion. Now he says, I'm going to make one law come into office. If it's a girl, let him live. If it's a boy, kill him. See, last week, some of you thought I was getting liberal. This week, some of you are about to think I'm getting conservative. See, this is what happens when you're too biblical. I'm just preaching the text. And today in the text in verse 15, Pharaoh doesn't care about human flourishing. Anytime someone doesn't care about human flourishing, because pro-life is this, from the womb and the tomb. But can I start to live a little bit so I can get to the tomb? Anytime you have a platform that comes against human flourishing on both ends, we got to call both sides evil. What am I saying today? Don't trust pharaohs. Put your trust in the Lord. I know I was looking at some of y'all faces 2 weeks ago. Oh my God, he's getting lit. No, I'm in the book. Jesus is not picking sides. He came to take over. And the reality is we have our hope and trust in pharaohs, but we don't have hope and trust in the conductor. And so now this Pharaoh says, listen, they growing. We got to do something about it, because if the war breaks out, it's going to be a problem. They're multiplying. So he talks to these Hebrew wives and he says, this is what I want you to do. If it's a girl, let him live. But if it's a boy, you got to kill him. But these midwives feared the Lord. They cared more about the Lord than they did public policy. They cared about the Lord. Now you got to understand, during this time, if you didn't do what Pharaoh said to do, he would kill you, but they feared the Lord. And you know what I've been tripping on? I've been thinking about the 300 people in Syria and other places who got killed because of their faith. You know what I was tripping on? I was like, how in the world, and that was your prayer, how in America are we so fearful and no one is coming to your house asking you, did you come to church? But yet in Syria, they're so bold. And if you say you went to church, they would kill you. Okay, y'all not hearing what I'm saying. I'm looking at my own life. There's sometimes I can be fearful, but what do we really have to fear? But there are certain people who are dying for their faith, and all they have to do is recant and say they're not a Christian, and they will live. But when Jesus has touched your heart, those words won't even come out your mouth because they have an eternal perspective. But we look at life through a magnifying lens, but they look at life through a helicopter view. That's why Paul says, how can you kill a dead man? It's better for me to die because die is gain. I'm not saying have a death sentence, but what I am saying is some of the problems that we face in light of eternity are nothing in the hands of a big God. But the reality is we don't trust the conductor. Hey, y'all better kill every boy. Y'all got to kill him. And the more they multiplied, the more pressure Pharaoh put on the Israelites, the more they started to grow. This is crazy because they started with 70 people. And now if you add everybody together, it's about 1.5 to 2 million people. I mean, they was having a lot of babies, man. I'm telling you. It was hotter there than it was here. That's a marriage conference right there. They feared the Lord. And now Pharaoh comes like, hey, what's going on? And the Hebrew midwives are like this, man, these Egyptians, man, they be having babies like, it take a while. Man, but these Israelites, by the time we get there, the baby already out. Why? Because pain produces power. I want to talk to somebody in this room. You're going through so much pain, it produced a type of power inside of you. This is what I know. Sometimes the people who's been through the most, those are the people that you got to celebrate God's favor and grace on your life. I know you don't like it, but the reason you're still standing with all that you've been through is because God has graced you for adversity. Have you ever looked at somebody else and say, I can't, like, you tripping over that? Why? Because every time you go through a trial, it develops perseverance inside of you to be able to withstand things that would have took you out 5 years ago. Pain produces power. So Pharaoh's like, okay, I'm done playing games. Y'all tripping. I said when they're born, kill them. They like, we can't do that. They having babies so quick. By the time we get there, the baby already out. What do you want us to do? And so Pharaoh's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I need you to take every baby boy, and you see that river right there? The Nile River that flows to the Mediterranean Sea? Just drown them. Just drown them. Kill them. And whatever Pharaoh says, it's law. And if you do something contrary to the law of Pharaoh, he can kill you on sight. Kill them. Drown them. But they feared the Lord. Chapter 2. Moses' mama has a baby. And she realizes this baby is special. Man, I wish I was going to preach this on Mother's Day. Mothers, you better go with me for a moment because every child that you have is special. Which one is your favorite? All of them. You love them in different ways. And you love the one you love when the other one getting on your nerves. Have you ever found yourself there, ladies, where you start spending time with the one that you love? John the beloved, the one he loved. And the text says that she was hiding them. Now you got to remember, you're supposed to kill every Hebrew boy, but she's hiding them. But then all of a sudden this baby is growing and she's getting nervous. If somebody finds out, then this baby's going to be killed. She has to do something. Where's the husband? I don't see the husband. However, he's probably outside every single day. Brick and mortar is his life. She's panicking. She has to make a decision. I want you to think about this, mothers. Your child right now, if somebody finds out, it's over. He's getting too big. That's all I got. So she takes the baby and she puts the baby in this basket. But she has enough sense to know that she's not just gonna put the baby in a basket and take the baby down the river. She actually gets reeds and other things to make this basket a flotation device. Okay. Because mothers are strategic. So she takes reeds and puts Moses in this basket. Pastor, I thought you was talking about God's providence. I am. Watch it. Can you imagine being at the riverbank where you got to put your child in a basket? And that's how some of you parents feel when you drop your child off to college. Did we do enough? Because let me free some woman in here, because there was probably a 2 or 3 year period. You know, you're not going to tell anybody that you knew you weren't the best mother because you was going through your own trauma. Oh, God. You was going through your own trauma. So, yeah, you were working hard, but you probably weren't there as you wanted them to be. And they started to grow up and you realized, like, are they really going to make it? And when you drop your child off, it's kind of like, all of us are going to have that sense. Did we do enough? Did we pray enough? Did we talk to them enough? And we got to drop the child and just hope that something happens. She had to hope, listen to me, biblical hope, not wishing something would happen, a hope that it would happen. She put this baby, don't even got a name by now. I thought it was Moses, not called Moses yet, just a baby. He was grown, just put him in the basket and just, okay, I don't know, I wasn't there. But is she timing the current? Is she trying to figure out? Anybody ever play skee ball before? You know, you're trying to figure it out, the skee ball. Do you go from the right or do you go from the left to try to get in the hole? Maybe bowling. Y'all didn't get that one. Maybe bowling. You're trying to figure out. Okay, the 7th. If you suck, you suck. It don't matter. It doesn't make a difference. She's trying to figure it out. Did they go to this school? This school is a community. We don't got enough money. The FAFSA form don't work no more. I'm trying to. Is it raining or something? Does any parent know what I'm talking about? You trying to figure out, did you do enough? I know there was a time our marriage was tripping for about 2 years. Like I was going through, I got to let go of my, you know what I'm thinking about now? As I'm getting older, my kids look at me and they don't realize, your kids don't realize that you got emotions. I was thinking back when I was 10, 15 years old, I didn't care if my mom or dad had a bad day. I didn't care if they were in a season of trauma. Didn't care. You just got to show up for your kids. And there's sometimes you're trying to mother or father your kids when you need to be mothered or fathered. You can hand me the microphone because I can see what's going on. I'm going to say that one more time because it felt good. There's sometimes as a mother or father, it's hard to be a mother or father when you need to be mothered or fathered. Anybody know what I'm talking about? So you're trying to do the best you can with what you got. And let me free you today. You did the best you could with the information that you had. Just as the baby went down the river, you need to let your past mistakes, the things that you didn't go right, the things that didn't go right in your life, you need to let that go down the river because the Lord has forgiven you. And sometimes we're holding on to things. But if you train your children in the Lord, When they get older, they will not depart. I don't know if it was a straight line when she put the baby in the reed. Maybe it was going to the left, maybe it was going to the right. But if you feel you have a child that's going in the opposite direction today, you know what you need to pray for? Strong wind. You need to pray for strong. She put this baby in the water. I don't know. Was there alligators there? Sharks there? I don't know. But the Nile River goes to the Mediterranean Sea. But she put this baby in a basket. And now she needs God's providence to show up. What is God's providence? When the matter is no longer in your hands. I'm preaching better than y'all. I'm starting another church in 3 weeks. I am, because y'all not getting this. I'm sweating for y'all right now. I need God's providence to do something with it. Hey, Liz, can you imagine being a mother dropping your child off? What do you do? Some of us are crying, dropping our child off at daycare. Or Michigan State, you're doing that. That's real. That's reality. But can you imagine dropping your child at 3 months old in the Nile River? I don't know. If God doesn't show up, it's not going to work out. Have you ever felt like that? God doesn't show up, it's not going to work out. Battery's low, amen. But God's providence. We got another mic coming. Can y'all hear me? Here. I'm just wasting time. But what I love, y'all need to hear it twice. Everything I say, y'all need to hear it twice. But what I love, this mother put this baby in the Nile River. The text is quiet. I need to shut up. But there's some things that I got just a suspicious feeling. The text says this, that her daughter, Moses' sister, was on the other side watching the whole time. This was a family decision. This mother, so strategic, she said, listen, baby, come here. I'm going to put your little brother in the basket. I need you to watch out on the other side to see what happens to your baby brother. See, this is why as family, we got to get, I'm challenged right there. You ever been there with your child? He hit me. No, she hit me. He did this, he did that. That's why we got to be united as a family. Because in this text that we see, where's the father? I don't know. He's out the picture right now. Maybe because he's being oppressed himself. This mother has to make a decision. Did she talk to the father? I don't know. If it was me, but I'm not there, I would have been there. I wouldn't have showed up that day. But his life could have been on the line, so don't judge him. I'm in the text. The baby's going down the river. And the sisters on the other side watching. Pharaoh's daughter, this is the place she takes a bath. She shows up at the exact time that the basket comes down the river. Y'all missed it. Hold on. It could have been any time, but the exact time that the basket stops is the exact time that Pharaoh's daughter shows up at the same time. Now, she could have took the baby and killed the baby. But the sister was there the whole time. When she grabbed the basket and said, hey, go get a wife or go get a midwife. Grab this. She didn't know it was a baby at this time. But the text says she saw the baby and felt sorry for the baby because Moses was crying as a baby. And she looks at it. Ooh, this is a cute little baby. Is it a Hebrew? And the sister says, hey, do you want me to get a midwife? You want me to get a midwife for you? I can get a midwife. She's like, yeah, go ahead and get a midwife. Go ahead and do that. Have you ever been in a place in your life where you didn't know how God was going to show up? But the time you needed him to show up, he showed up on time. See, when you follow Jesus, your job and your promotion's not about a paycheck. Your job and your promotion is so you can be a mouthpiece. So there are sometimes God will delay your promotion because the person you're supposed to lead to Christ isn't at the job yet. Okay, I'm losing everybody today. It's a sovereign setup. There are sometimes in your life the delay is not no, but you don't know what God is doing because we look at life through a magnifying glass. But God has a helicopter view. God will look at a job that you desire and want and say in about 18 months, you're actually going to get laid off. So I'm going to get you a job that is actually less money, but yet in the long run, you have more money because this job that you want is going to get let go. So God sometimes, he will step back from a situation. Do I got any person in this room? There was actually a girl or a boy, I'm going to call them a boy and a girl, that you wanted in your life. Maybe in high school, you wanted to go to prom with her, but then you looked on Facebook 6 months ago and you was praising the Lord. I'm so glad she broke my heart because she got 2 teeth and 3 wishes. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Have you ever scanned back over the people you used to date or wanted to date and you just said, God, thank you? Because that could have been my life. God is orchestrating everything in your life for a song, a symphony, for his glory and for your good. But if you look at life on an isolated note, you will get frustrated and not understand that God is in a helicopter looking down through society, looking at someone who would trust the conductor. Because even when you don't understand the notes, you got to trust the conductor. Moses' mother had to trust the conductor. The daughter had to trust the conductor. The princess, Pharaoh's daughter, got this baby. And can you imagine the trepidation? Now, you're looking at this text perhaps wrong because this daughter, we know that she's not of age to just have a job. There's no way she's at the riverbank with the job and she's just staring. So many theologians believe she's about 10 to 12 years old. And she steps up in front of Pharaoh's daughter and says this, hey, you want me to get a midwife? And it says that Pharaoh's daughter felt sorry for the baby. Okay, you missed it. I'm going to say it one more time. Pharaoh's daughter had sympathy for the baby. I don't know. She didn't have sympathy for the other babies. But God is orchestrating every single event. So she's like, okay, this is what I need you to do. Okay, go ahead and get a midwife. Go ahead and get one. And so they go summon a midwife. I'm finished, I promise you. And when they summon the midwife, the text says that she got the baby's mother. I'm leaving this church. It's going to take some time to get it. She said, do you want me to get a midwife? She said, yes, get a midwife. And she summoned the baby's mother. Do you want me to get a midwife? Yes, get a midwife. And she summoned the baby's mother. Can I preach to 7 mothers? You just not going to let your baby go down a stream. You're going to be going down the whole time, making sure that God's providence works out. And the text says she got paid to do it. Can I talk to somebody at this church? Some mother that you've been raising your child, keep raising your child in the Lord and it'll pay off. If you trust the conductor, it'll pay off. If you trust the Lord, it will pay off. She got paid for raising her own child. She thought her own child was gonna die. Now she's getting paid to raise her own child. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna back that thing up right now. If we could stop looking at life through a magnifying glass and start to magnify the Lord and take a step back and realize if God doesn't do it for you, it must be because he has better in mind for me. There are so many things that I wanted in life to happen, but I realized God is working things out for his glory and for my good. You got to trust the conductor. It's my story. I'm sticking to it. We moved 11 times as a church, but here's the reality. If we stayed at the same place for 8 years, 90% of y'all wouldn't be here right now. So God strategically had to move us around because some of you needed a word from God that would sustain you in a season. So God sometimes will move you and arrange you around, and it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Perhaps it means he can trust you. So even when you don't understand the notes, you can trust the Lord. The midwives feared God and did not do what Pharaoh told them to do because they trusted the Lord. See, what Pharaoh didn't know, even what Moses' mother fully didn't realize, was God was behind the scene working out every detail. The same river that was meant to bring death became the channel in which Moses was delivered. Okay. Y'all making me work too hard. Y'all got me sweating up here. The very household that issued the death decree was the place where Moses was raised. God is orchestrating everything behind the scenes. Moses' family was only aware of about 2 or 3 things going on. But God was arranging about 10,000 things that they could not see. When she put the baby in the river, God was orchestrating the waves of that river to make sure that the baby ended up exactly at the precise time that Pharaoh's daughter was there. God is arranging things in your life right now that you don't even know about. There are some things happening right now that you're not getting sleep over, that God is smiling because you have no idea what he's doing. He's arranging some things. And I want to talk to some parent as I get ready to close that you put your baby in this basket, it seems like, and you drop them off to school. Or perhaps they're getting married. That's what it is when your child gets married to another man. Can I suggest that you doing all right? That your mama dropped you off in life. And some of you walked away from the faith, walked away from church, but now you're here worshiping God. The same thing will happen to your child if you trust the conductor, even when you don't understand the notes. God was working out 10,000 different things to accomplish his greater plan. That even when you don't understand the notes, what do you got to do? Trust the conductor. But I didn't come just to preach about Moses. I came to preach about Jesus because Jesus fulfilled everything Moses did, because Moses was born during a time of oppression. Jesus was born during a time of oppression. Moses was born when he was being oppressed by the Egyptians. Jesus was born being oppressed by the Romans. Moses was oppressed by a powerful leader. Jesus was oppressed by a powerful leader. In both cases, there was a decree that was issued to kill male
born children. Pharaoh ordered the slaughter and the death of the Israelite male infants. King Herod ordered the killing of male children in Bethlehem. But God does not forget his promise, his people, nor his plan. Because of God's providence, Moses was preserved by faith and the actions of his parents. Because of God's providence, he was preserved by faith, Jesus, and the action of his parents. Joseph got a dream, and his dream took him to Egypt. Jesus' earthly father, what was his name? Joseph, had a dream, and they took him to Egypt. I'm preaching today. Jesus is fulfilling everything that Moses did to remind you that he's greater than Moses, that he's greater than your deficiency, that he's greater than your loss, that he's greater than whatever you have to go through. Even when you don't understand the notes, trust the conductor. The divorce was just a note, but God is composing a song of healing. The job loss was just a note, but God is orchestrating a new opportunity. The heartbreak was just a note, but God is writing a melody in your life. The failure was just a note, but God is turning it into a lesson. The sickness is just a note, but God is breathing a testimony of strength. The loneliness is just a note, but God is composing a community. The betrayal was just a note, but God is harmonizing it for redemption. The delay is just a note, but God is arranging everything in perfect time. The rejection is just a note, but God is writing a greater opportunity. The unanswered prayer is a note, but God is creating a symphony for your perfect plan. You don't know what God is doing, but in the background, he's working, even when you don't see it. He's working. Trust the conductor.